How the f did you get in here? Good friend of the stream, Vaush, got banned today on both of his channels because both of his channels got struck on YouTube, and now he can't stream for a week. My community was very, like, when you look at people like Jordan Peterson was like the prototypical, I think, example of this, and then you look at like a lot of the red pill guys now. If you're on the right, and I'm able to accurately explain like, okay, well, I don't agree with you, but I understand like these are your complaints. I understand that you're looking for these types of solutions. Like, I get your problems. Like, they're real. They exist, obviously. Like, feelings aren't random. We say that on the left all the time, you know? Nobody feels things by accident. I think if you're on the right, you're like, oh, well, it's cool that like somebody, especially somebody on the left, at least seems like, even if I don't agree with them, at least it seems like they understand my problems. Because I think most people on the left are only speaking to people on the left, and they don't really seem to care to try to like have any sort of empathetic bridge built at all, because everybody on the right is just like a racist, Nazi, neo-fascist. How do I feel the events went? Good one. I think the event exceeded my expectation by quite a bit, actually. For my first day, I was hoping we would get some okay, like at least one or two okay convos that August could cut up if needed, and I was hoping for like 5,000 or 6,000 people on my stream, maybe a little less if like the internet was laggy. But I think day one peaked at 11,000 viewers, and it pretty consistently held at around 9,000 to 10,000, which was really good for a live stream audience. If you can't hear me in the back, just shout at me and I'll speak up something. And the audience was pretty good. There were issues, but I think most of the issues were on our end. After the first day, I got a lot of feedback. I did a lot of soul searching. I think that in the future, I think we're probably going to go with more pointed topics. Initially, my idea was the broader the topic, the more people I could get in to have a conversation. But I think a lot of conversation time was wasted on like figuring out what exactly the topic was. And then when it's too broad, there's too much room for agreement for people that sit down. I think that having more particular or specific topics would have been good to get more passionate people to come and disagree. And it would have been good for more focused conversations. So like the first topic was, has wokeism gone too far? Maybe instead a better topic would have been, I think Nazis should be allowed to speak on campus. Like that would have been a much more aggressively phrased topic, and it would have gotten people to sit down who really disagreed with that premise, rather than like the general trend of like, well, is it too much wokeness and blah, 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 which is probably a little bit too vague, I guess, for the style of conversation. That was one thing. The second thing was I did a difference between like day 2 and day 3, or I'm sorry, day 1 and day 2, or event 1 and event 2, where initially I was trying to chew through a lot of people because I didn't want to, I felt bad like talking to one person for like 30 or 40 minutes and then having the rest of the crowd just kind of sitting there or standing there. But I think in retrospect, I think going a lot deeper in conversations, I think produces better conversations because one, I don't have to retread a bunch of old ground, which I was doing a lot on day 1. And 2, it allows me to dig deeper into more meatier like parts of the conversation where more of the interest lies. Like the first like 4 minutes of any like abortion debate are just going to be each other like figuring out like what's going on. How the f did you get in here? No, I'm looking at you. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. We got spies in the building. Okay. No, but yeah, I think that having the more fleshed out conversations, I think is probably better than like having like somebody come on for 5 minutes, shoo them off, 5 minutes, shoo them off, 5 minutes, and shoo them off. Particularly on the first day, the two. I brought up one guy that was like a total outsider, like he wasn't a Destiny fan or anything, and at the end of the conversation, he said something really wild about like executing political opponents that say like crazy things, but I'd already kind of said like, I'll give you the last word, so I didn't want to go too deep on it, but I definitely could have talked to that guy for a lot longer. It would have been an interesting conversation. And then the communist socialist girl, I probably could have talked to for probably a lot longer, but I also cut that conversation short too, because that one was already going for pretty long. Yeah, but the second day was a lot better for that. Let's see, more pointed topics, probably talking to people for a bit longer, diving deeper on conversations. The speaker was really helpful in Austin. It was nice when we had it set up here at A&M, but when it got taken down, that sucked because if you can't, a lot of people aren't projecting their voice as much. A lot of people like kind of talk into the microphone or they could talk down and they don't project very well. So next time we do an event, we'll probably have speakers. We'll get like, I guess we needed permits here for them, or they decided we needed permits or something. We'll probably make sure that's set up. What else do you guys care about? Any questions, I guess, related to anything like that, or feedback or thoughts or ideas? Perception of college students before and after. Oh, I guess one of the big things that I had to decide about was whether or not to shout out this event far in advance or not. So initially when I did these, like I do a lot of study generally for the conversations that I do have. And if I'm going to come in Thunderdome kids in like the debate arena, I wanted to be people that like, oh, Destiny's coming to debate this thing. I'm going to like look up all the research so that when I come, I can have a really productive conversation. I didn't want to just come and like face a bunch of like college kids who like aren't ready to get like master debated or some like stupid, you know, like dumb stuff like that. I wanted them to be like really prepared to have like a really good fleshed out fruitful conversation, but I think it kind of backfired in that I just had a bunch of my fans show up and it was like a bunch of people that already kind of agreed with me, so the conversations like weren't as productive. So I need to find a way to strike a balance between informing some kind of people ahead of time that I'll be there so that they can like send their champion debaters, but then also not like not doing it so much ahead of time that it's just a bunch of like my fans that show up. And yeah, that's probably not as positive a thing, I think, because having a bunch of people sit down that are already fans of me, we're going to be like in 99% agreement regardless. About anything else? Yeah, go. What else?
What would you say is the most challenging part of the change your mind segment?
What's the most challenging part of the change your mind segment for me? No, honest to God, not much. I just have to show up and talk to people. Jeff is the one that like deals with all the heavy lifting and everything. Yeah, I don't think I mean, I guess depending on the topic, I guess maybe there could be topics that I need to prepare for if I do like a more in-depth topic in the future. But these were all ones that I was already kind of familiar with. But yeah, I mean, like most of the students are really friendly. All the staff and all of my help were really friendly. So everything went like really easily for me. There wasn't like it'd be pretty silly for me to say there was like any challenges associated for me. It was everything went really smoothly. More dunking? No, that's the whole point, is to not do that. My dream, what I really want is, it's kind of funny because people were making fun of like some of the America First guys, but I actually think that the two conversations I had with the AF guys were really good today, because I think that those are traditionally conversations, because of where the America First people are situated. They sit outside of kind of like the realm of acceptable political opinions. And I think that generally when people want to deal with that group of people, usually you just say, I don't talk to them, they're Nazis. I don't want to talk to them ever. And I think that the conversations we had today, even though there were obviously huge, like foundational disagreements between the two of us, me and then I think there were two different guys that I had conversations with. I thought that the conversations were really good, because you can show that at the very least, even if we disagree, that there is a conversation that can be had there. There is discourse, there is dialogue. Just because I had that conversation doesn't mean everybody magically turned into a Nazi. It didn't represent like an existential threat to the entire school. And it is possible to like engage people that you dramatically disagree with in opinions in productive conversations, I think. So even though I don't know if you guys showed up to troll or whatever, I did appreciate the AF guys showing up for the conversations, because yeah, I think they were both good conversations. Yeah. Somebody said I can't dunk on anybody because I'm too short. So not cool, not nice. Question from over there. Do I prefer internet debates versus real life debates? I like real life everything, because there's a different like energy in real life. It's I grew up in a really interesting time. It's hard to explain unless you're like within like 1 or 2 years of me. Like, so I'm 33. When I grew up, like the internet wasn't really a thing until like high school. As weird as that is to say, it was like AOL.com keyword search. And then, yeah, it was a way different kind of place. Like Gmail didn't exist. We were fighting for space on like Yahoo Mail. People were using like Netscape, and Real Media Player. And it was a totally different time. So I grew up enough in an environment where real life interactions were kind of like essential. And then when social media started, social media like only existed to help your real life interactions. Like Facebook, when Facebook first came out, I don't know if this is everybody's experience, but Facebook was so cool when it came out, because it gave you a way to like see where the parties were, and then to check in and like be at parties. Like, okay, everybody's going to John's house at 9 p.m. on Saturday, and I can see who's going, and that's awesome. That was like the whole point. So I like online debates. Obviously, it's my bread and butter, and it's the best things I can play Factorial while I do it. But I think in real life, I think there's a different type of energy. There's a kind of mutual respect demanded. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have a conversation in real life where the other person goes full like ape mode and starts screaming and screeching like they do online. I don't think people generally bring that same type of energy in real life, because you see the other human being and it humanizes them to some extent. I didn't see Haas at TwitchCon, but who knows? Maybe I mean, when Haas met me, Haas was very, very, very nice. He was very, but Chud Logic, I mean, he's British. You know, British people bring out the worst sometimes in each other. Yeah, I don't know. I do appreciate the energy of real life events. I like online events because they're super like convenient. Obviously, you can just call someone to talk. But I really like real life formats, and I think it's a good skill to have, like public speaking and being able to speak to people in public. I just said the same thing twice. But yeah, that's a really good skill to have. Yeah.
If you go online for the most of your in person for the most of your debates, it's going to be really difficult and really silly looking for you to fly into a rage, throw your hands in the air, and threaten to ban everybody in the room.
Can people hear these guys if they're not? Okay, good. Yeah, so that guy just was freaking out. I don't know what. Can we? Do we have security here? Can I ban people here? He said that this guy over here, the jokester over here, said that if I'm having real life debates, it's going to look bad if I wave my head around, throw my hands in the air, and threaten to ban chat if they troll me. So, good one. Yeah, so the question is whether or not I could do more topics in the future to give more people a chance to engage. I don't think I want to have like a whole like host of topics that people can do, because one, for the video, it would be nice to focus it on like a particular topic. It's better for a video if it's just not a ton of stuff. And then two, it gives me an ability to kind of like feel out like a certain vibe on a conversation topic. Like, it's interesting if I can do a certain topic and get like 10 different people's opinions on that same topic. It helps me build like almost like a subjective consensus in my head about how people feel about particular things, which is nice. And then three, if I do more in-depth topics in the future, I'm only human. I can only prepare for so many topics. If I've got like 10 different topics and they all require like pretty extensive reading, then I don't think it's realistic for me to be like, especially if I'm giving people things heads up in advance. If like the Aggie like Republicans send some guy to debate me on like very niche like foreign policy issues in like Azerbaijan or something, and I don't even know what's going on there right now, like it's going to be like too overwhelming for me to deal with. I think I'd rather stick to like one or two topics that are very like current day, like hot button topics, depending on what's going on. So like Ukraine is a big one right now. Inflation is a big one right now. Biden's presidency is kind of a big one right now. But yeah, more like pointed specific topics in the future. It's okay. I don't need like, I think my goal should probably be like 6 or 7 like really good conversations rather than trying to get through like 20 people that all want to like talk about different things. Yeah. Just don't prepare. Be like Vaush. You know, I've seen how that's working for Vaush. Not very well. So no, but tempting.
Do you find it more or less difficult to guide conversations in person versus online?
Do I find it more or less difficult to guide conversations in person versus online? I think in person is actually more difficult, because this is it's just my current read and I could be wrong, but I think that in person it's more difficult because I think the other person gets a little bit more nervous, and I think it's harder for them sometimes to keep track of what I'm saying. Like, I notice when I'm talking to people in person, especially when they're like a little bit more nervous, they kind of ramble, and they'll go over like 4 or 5 different points, and it's hard to keep the conversation on track. But it's also like, I don't want to cut somebody off in person. I want to like interrupt. It feels more rude to do in person. But yeah, it's also harder because I can't like take notes. Like normally on my computer, I can like, if somebody wants to ramble for a minute or two, I can like write down point after point after point. And then when they're done, I can go ahead and give like my rebuttal to each one. So guiding in-person topics are definitely a bit different, probably more challenging in person, but I'd say more rewarding if you do a good job. Yeah.
So the topics that you chose, do you think that the way that you choose them in the future is going to be different? Because I saw, there's only one segment that I saw out of any of them, and it was the girl at UT that was arguing about wokeness with you. Mm-hmm. And she had she had an upper hand because she wasn't making any positive claim forward, and she was basically appealing to the fact that you were saying anecdotes and stuff like that. Do you think that you're going to tailor your topics more to be hyper-specific in the future, or? Yeah,
so the question is basically like, the girl at UT seemed like she had the upper hand because she could nail me down on my lack of specificity on a topic. I think in the future, I think the topics are going to be way more specific to kind of, keep the conversations a little bit more focused, I think. Because, initially broader, I went broader just to have more people feel comfortable engaging with the topics, but I think in the future, being more narrow to get people to engage on certain specific points that I can be like really well prepared for, so we can go really deep into the topic, is probably going to be more fruitful. Wait, are you an online person?
Yeah.
Oh, you're Sansel, right?
Yeah, we met twice.
Yeah, I just connected. I don't even, Jesus, my brain. Okay. Sorry. Oh, hi.
Yeah, I know you said that you would change some things, but I was wondering if you had a specific goal for these events and if you met that goal.
So my specific goal for these events are, it feels like right now there are like bubbles of acceptable or possible political conversations. So if you're a progressive or you're somebody on the left that is very like politically opinionated, there is like this whole class of people that you will refuse to talk to. Like progressives don't typically engage Trump supporters or like Blue Lives Matter people in very, there's a word I'm looking for. Productive. They don't engage them in very productive dialogue. Usually it's like a bunch of name calling, screaming, and then deplatforming is like the goal from the left. And then on the right, there's also this goal of like, they're a little bit more desperate for the platforming, so they'll entertain more conversations now. But it's still like, I have this fundamental idea that I'm almost positive is true, that like 99% of like all of humanity is pretty shared on what we want for humanity. Like I think most people want to have happy, healthy families. They want to be able to work a job and contribute to society. They want to earn money, come home, and then like have some fun. Like I think that basic framework applies to almost everybody on the planet. And then obviously you're going to get into the weeds on certain moral issues, especially around issues like LGBT stuff. But for the most part, I think everybody is coming from a good place. And one of my goals in having conversations with people that are very politically different is to try to show that I understand that, and then to try to make other people understand that like when people are coming out like from a Blue Lives Matter perspective, it's not because they hate black people and they love cops and they want to see like minorities killed. It's because they think that more police will genuinely make the place a safer place. Or when you get people that are talking like defund the police and ACAB, they're not saying that because they want crime to run rampant and they hate cops and they want them all to die. Well, most of them don't. They're doing it because they genuinely think that like the institution of policing like needs to change because it's not in a good place to keep most people in America, especially minorities, in like a healthy area. So yeah, I guess my goal is, that's what my goal is, engaging people with like vastly different political opinions to show it's possible and to show that there is some common ground at least. And in terms of like, was I successful with that in this event? I mean, these are the first two that I've done. I would say they went really successfully in terms of metrics. I think some of the conversations I had were pretty good, but I can definitely do them better in the future. But yeah, this is a first trial run on it. And I think it went exceedingly well compared to what I expected it to go, yeah.
Going off that last answer, when you start looking at your career in a big picture perspective, what do you think is the like potential impact that you could have? It's also taking into account like that you're thinking about this whole media company startup. Like, what do you think like are the upward bounds of like the kind of impact you could have or your movement could have?
When I look at my career, what is like the upward impact that I could have was kind of the question. I guess, so anybody here play Mega Man? Okay, decent amount. Okay, every time Mega Man kills an enemy, he absorbs their weapon, and it's like a new thing that he uses on his next opponent. Something that I've been so incredibly lucky to experience. Like my honest to God, my whole life is just like one lucky break after another. When I got popular on the internet, I was definitely part of a very specific section of incredibly edgy internet behavior. Like incredibly edgy, like stuff that would make like Hitler blush if he read like some of the chat logs that I had on Battle.net, like an unbelievably edgy time on the internet. But like the internet was kind of accepting of that culture back then. And as the culture has slowly changed, I've kind of like naturally progressed along with it. So I think that like I have a really wide background in terms of being able to understand a lot of different types of people. I come from a Catholic background. I went to a Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, all boys Jesuit. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska in the Midwest for 30 years. I lived in LA for 3 years. Like I've got Republican parents. My mom and side of the family are Cuban immigrants. And then I've been online through so many different communities. I think that probably the most unique thing I have is I've got a lot of different perspectives and I don't demonize any of them. I don't know why people do this, but usually like if a human leaves one place for another, like the thing he has to do is immediately decry and destroy and hate wherever he came from. Whereas I can like move on from one place and I can be like, I disagree with these people, but I understand why they do what they do. So when you say like, what is the upper bound, I guess, or the upper trajectory of my career? I don't know. I mean, ideally, I guess the most popular person in the world, but that's probably not realistic. But one thing that I've been able to do, I think exceedingly well from place to place is I seem to be able to go into communities that are very different from me. And I've got a really good rhythm of getting respect from those communities and then pushing into those communities in ways that I didn't think I'd be able to do before. And I think I can only do that because of the unique experiences that I've had so far getting to where I am. Like, I think my foray into like the fresh and fit stuff went, again, way better than I thought. My first meeting was probably more soft than a lot of people would have liked it, but my second time on the show was like way more aggressive, and I think I could only do it because of the respect I earned the first time. So yeah, I think my goal is to just be able to, I guess, like communicate with different communities and at least show that communication is possible. I don't talk to my community much about this, but like everybody always talks about like converting people and converting people and converting people. Like people talk about it with, like the gripers, like you got to convert the gripers, you got to convert the fresh and fit people. You got to. My goal isn't usually to convert anybody. Actually, I really don't care at the end of the day if I convert people or not. That's not my goal. My goal is at the very least that like I want you to come away from listening to me thinking like, okay, I hate this guy and he's kind of a cuck, but I can understand where he's coming from, and I like at least I like understand like what he's saying, and I know why he's saying what he's saying, rather than like the stereotypical image of like a blue-haired screeching SJW that's just calling you racist or something. So yeah, I guess as many communities as I can penetrate with that, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
On the Austin talk on the has wokeness gone too far, I didn't see all of it, but every single person that argued against you on that, what they were saying eventually ended up being, so? They used a whole bunch more words to say that in that one word, but they all just seem to say, well, they say bad things, they get canceled, so what's the big deal? As in they don't recognize how easily it can be flipped back around on the people that they enjoy. How do you deal with that kind of dismissal attitude?
Basically, the question was, if I argue with somebody about the wokeness topic and eventually the conversation ends with them saying like, oh, well, so what? Like, so what if it's gone too far? How do you get through to somebody that seems like they're in favor of those like very radical positions? Honestly, it's usually like a more in-depth conversation to get there. There's a lot of different paths you can go, but part of convincing somebody that they have an idea that's bad is the first thing you have to do is get an understanding of what's important to them. And once you have an understanding of what's important to them, I think you have to demonstrate to them how that idea can be flipped against them. And how important it is for them to understand why they should have a more principled position on it. I remember when we argued it was about guns, one of the most compelling arguments that I've heard in favor of guns when you're arguing with progressive communities is to bring up things like the LA riots, or to bring up things like the Black Panthers in California, or to bring up things like the Tulsa riots. And, do you think that minorities should have the right to have firearms to protect themselves against certain types of aggressive white communities or racist communities that will have firearms? And usually when you start to frame things like that, it becomes a lot harder for them to be like, well, maybe not, but like, because you can demonstrate like, okay, well, here's a principle that I have that I think is important, and the only time you can think of that principle being exercised is when it's against you. But I can demonstrate that this principle, it can benefit you too. And I think that's kind of the goal that we have. Progressives stopped doing this a long time ago. They never want to show people how the ideals that they advocate for can benefit the other side. They'll only argue it in their side. I don't even know if they care sometimes if it's for the other side. But yeah, I think it's important to recognize both sides of the argument and to show that like, hey, here's a principle that I have. Maybe it can be beneficial to you. Good friend of the stream, Vaush, got banned today on both of his channels because both of his channels got struck on YouTube, and now he can't stream for a week. My community was very, remorseful, or like, oh, that sucks. It sucks that his channel got banned. When my Twitter account got nuked, his whole subreddit obviously was rejoicing and celebrating. Usually the best way, this is going to sound so weird, but the best way to get YouTube bans flipped sometimes is to have like a big uproar on Twitter to try to get them flipped. Now, imagine if Vaush had a friend with a 100,000 follower Twitter account that could amplify his tweets to YouTube help, but he doesn't have that right now because his fan base is massively in favor of deplatforming, and my Twitter account is banned. Not to say that like my retweets or my encouragement would have been the deciding factor there, but it definitely would have helped. It definitely would have been 4, 5, 6, 10,000 more retweets. And there are definitely other people that I could have reached out to help for that, like I did for Mr. Girl. But because Vaush's community has their stance on deplatforming people they don't like, they essentially lost access to that. So yeah, that was a really long way of saying that like when you run into people that seem like they don't care about the end goal of whatever it is you're arguing, the important thing to do is to like get the focus off of you and find out like, well, how could this negatively impact you? Oh, another really easy thing to do. some guy got me with this hardcore X skills me did, and it made me rethink a lot of executive powers. Was I don't remember what it was. It had something to do with like the executive branch being able to rule things as like misinformation or whatever. And X skills me was like, anytime you think about these types of programs you want running, imagine that Trump is at the head of them. And I'm like, you know what? When you put it that way, I don't actually think I want the federal government doing this or that, because I don't think I would want him in charge of those programs. So yeah, that's another way to flip it too. It just depends on the person you're talking to. What do you got?
Ignoring your fans, how do you feel your reception on campus?
Ignoring my fans, how was my reception on campus? I thought it was exceedingly well. Everybody was polite. Nobody showed up to heckle. Nobody tried to stab me or shoot me. Everybody seemed, yeah, I don't know. I thought everybody, I mean, I had a lot of fans there, so it's hard to say, but I mean, everybody seemed polite. I didn't have any problems. Yeah. Was one better than the other? You know, the Aggies are just so kind down here. So great, so graceful. No, I'm not sure. They both seemed like, I mean, there's a lot of my fans there, so it's hard to say, but I mean, both seemed like pretty friendly. Yeah. Other back.
Oh, me?
Yeah, in the back.
Oh, okay. So my question's kind of off topic. I noticed, you mentioned Mr. Girl. I noticed something different about you, Mr. Girl. The way that
Oh, there's a lot of things different about me, Mr. Girl, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, y'all are kind of similar, but the main difference I noticed is he likes to rationalize his thoughts with his feelings a lot. You don't do that. You rationalize your thoughts and your arguments with like facts. You ever think and wonder why you don't ever lean on your feelings a little bit more to rationalize your arguments?
Why don't I lean on my feelings more to rationalize my arguments? Usually when I'm having an argument with another person, I feel like I'm usually taking kind of the more aggressive stance, and I feel like I'm trying to work within the framework of their feelings or what they care about. So if I'm having a conversation with somebody and I'm trying to convince them of something different, I'm usually working through how they feel about things. My feelings are very relevant, because I feel a certain way about things and I think a certain way about things. And if you felt the way that I felt and you thought the way that I thought, then you're going to agree with me 100%. But if you are having dramatically different thoughts than me, then my assumption is going to be that that you're feeling a different way about things. So usually I try to work through things from the other person's perspective, I guess. I do consider how I feel about things sometimes, but I usually find like arguments from personal feelings about things are usually really unconvincing to other people. It tends not to work that way unless it's something that we can like bond over. Like if it's a similar feeling we have. So like when I argue about trans kids, sometimes I'll try to appeal to if another person is a parent. That's a really easy conversation for me to have, because like I have a son. If I have a medical decision that I want to make with my son, like you might have a medical decision you want to make with a child, the last person you want involved with that is some government official telling you can or can't do anything. That's the easiest argument in the world to have, because that's a really strong feeling that we can bond on. But otherwise it's just, it's going to depend on, I guess, what the conversation is, how much my personal feelings are going to be involved in the argument. Yeah, go for it.
Have you considered going to Houston at all?
Have I considered going to UC?
Houston.
Oh, Houston. Why? What's in Houston?
Everything's U of H. It's
You what?
Bigger city than College Station.
Bigger city. Man, I heard a lot of crazy things about Houston, okay? I'm just saying.
Watch.
Correct. Okay, you're already making me feel a little worried about Houston, okay? Jeez, all right? I don't know. I think for this, we just reached out to a ton of, the goal was to find like 2 schools that we could drive to within like a couple days. And then these 2 reached out to us. The support was really strong. San Antonio was really strong too, but that it ultimately ended up falling through. But it basically comes down to whoever responds, whichever organization is like the most excited to have us on campus. And then we kind of just, go from there basically. But I mean, if there's like a campus at Houston that wants us in the future, we might do that. Just depends. Yeah. You.
Would you ever be opposed to doing like a change my mind at a black campus like Prairie View A&M?
Would I be opposed to doing a change my mind at a black campus? What kind of black campus are we talking about? Like an HBCU?
Yeah.
Jesus, what would the topic be? Like, should white people be allowed to rap the N-word? Or like, that seems like, I don't know what the, I think that, there are a lot of like very divisive issues. Like generally for any issue that a white person thinks they have with the black community, a part of the black community usually has that issue with the black community as well. So I don't know if it's me inserting myself into that conversation seems like really weird. Like I'm trying to imagine myself showing up like at an HBCU saying like, I disagree with colorism, like we shouldn't engage in this anymore. And I'm like the only white guy. It just seems like a really weird argument for me to have. It would definitely be fun and it would be memey. I don't know if it would be the most appropriate thing. And I imagine the reception there would be like kind of wild.
Performed pretty well in the past with like say for example on like the Fanatic panel. I don't know. I think it would be good content and not in the way that it would be like like ultra controversial or even dangerous, but.
It would be I would have to find an appropriate topic. It gets like, this sounds kind of weird. I usually don't mind arguing anything, but I do try to think of the optics sometimes as like the white straight savior. Like I don't want to ever give that vibe off that like I'm going to like the minority college to teach them how to like be the best minority they can be. And even with LGBT issues, sometimes I feel that like I'm here arguing in favor of trans issues a lot, and I'm like the cis white savior guy to like do it. Like I try to avoid that characterization. If there was like a really relevant topic that came up and I thought it'd be like a really good opportunity, maybe, but it would super come down to like what this particular topic was. I think if I had like a really good one, then maybe, yeah.
Because you don't want to come off as like provocative in any way.
Yeah, well, provocative or too much of like a simp. Like if I show up at like an HBCU and I say like, oh, we should have reparations or something, like it just feels like really weird as like a white person to be like, I'm here to, I don't know, just, yeah, there's just like a lot of weird, it just feels really weird, I guess. It would come down to the topic, I think, for what the conversation should be, I think, yeah.
Would you ever come back here?
Would I ever come back to A&M? Maybe. Yeah, it just depends on what's going on in the future. Depends how many more of these we do, yeah. Do I still talk to Sargon? Not really, but I like never really talk to Sargon that much. Like privately, like we DM every now and then, but it's pretty rare. Yeah. What's chat up to real quick? Hold on. Nothing much. Okay, they're just memeing. Okay, what's up?
Yeah, this is a silly question, but today with the gun control, specifically the gun control argument, there was a bearded gentleman, older gentleman that came up to you and was going to argue with you, and you kind of made this like gesture of like, oh gosh, or like preparing for something.
Was it this guy here?
I don't. Oh, was it you?
I don't know. I was the only one that.
Oh yeah, it was this guy. I just say shut up. He looks like the most stereotypical like conservative.
He was a former police officer.
Yeah, it was this guy. Yeah, it's that guy right there.
I've been bamboozled, actually. So.
He's like the white guy from the Joyner Lucas song, like showing up to like, yeah, and I'm like, oh god, here we go. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's I should have pushed back more on the gun control topic. That was 100% my fault. The problem is that like I'm pretty like the weird thing was, I guess Stream didn't see this, but like most of the people that came up to argue against gun control ended up being in favor of more gun control than I would have been in favor of, which I thought was kind of strange. A couple people sat down to argue against gun control, and then they were saying, like, I think red flag laws are actually good, and we should restrict, like, most firearm purchases to 21. And I was like, oh, I don't think I would agree with that at all. So, yeah, I should have pushed back more on that topic. I think we were trying to go with, like, one left-leaning topic and one right-leaning topic, but we didn't know where the Joe Biden one would end up being. Like, are more left-leaning people going to fight me on that than right-leaning people because progressives hate Joe Biden? Yeah, I don't know. So, Yeah, well, next time the topics will be more pointed, and I'll have a more aggressive position, I think, and then I'll far more aggressive, like passionate people to argue the other side of it as well. Yeah.
When's that jacket going up on sale?
Wasn't this sold in the last merch drop?
I don't think so. No.
Oh man, I wonder where I got this from. I don't know. Ask Ninu. Always bug Ninu and chat about merchandise. Okay, she's the one. Hey.
Okay, this is kind of weird. A lot off topic. All right.
Kind of weird, a lot off topic. All right.
Yeah, so the vegan gains debate.
Oh, God. Vegan debates. Literally follow me to my own fan meetups. Really?
So your original position in like past debates was kind of like how it was the human, like it was a conscious experience, but then it was also kind of how well can you adhere to a social contract was kind of what I gained from what you had said. And so like if an alien came down and that they had such advanced like conscious experience that you couldn't conform to their social contract that they could kill you off, And then in this recent debate, you kind of moved towards more of like, okay, well, we value a human or something that relates to a human conscious experience because that is like what we have. And so I'm kind of wondering why you moved from this idea of like the human or kind of more towards, I guess, human rather than being able to adhere to the social.
I think so I think both arguments are still true. I think the human sentience one, in a way, can reduce to that social contract one, but the social contract one gets weirder because people really want to talk about severely mentally disabled people all the time and their inability to reciprocate a social contract. But I find that like the human sentience one seems to be a bit more grounded. Like I feel like I can argue that on stronger grounds for like start and end to human life and kind of the uniqueness of like the human subjective experience. But then some people want to argue that animals have similar subjective experiences. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I think that I do that argument more. But I haven't really like practiced up on vegan arguments recently. Like maybe I would find a way to incorporate that social contract one into the human subjective experience because human subjective experiences are the only ones that can conceptualize as much necessary to make the social contract thing work. I don't know if I'm fully bought into that or not. I have to think a lot about that, but I just haven't done vegan arguments in a while because fuck that. Sansel.
A lot of people are asking me to ask you about the misogyny, the anti-misogyny arc.
The anti-misogyny arc.
And also, the DGG chat on Twitter is begging me to shout them out. So Courtney and Paraglobalism and Sock Darling all say hello.
Courtney, Paraglobalism, and Sock Darling all say hello. Hello. We say hello back to you. So the anti-misogyny arc is my community is too misogynistic. Look around you, friends. Okay, not good. There's a couple things going on. So one, I think that like hardcore online communities already lend themselves to being male dominated. Political communities online lend themselves to be even more male dominated, and debate political communities surrounding like autistic video games like Factorio probably even more lend themselves towards being male dominated. So all of that is true. But one thing that I noticed, I have a friend, I've got a woman friend who points out to me a lot that even if I'm not overtly misogynistic with the things that I say, and even when I'm not joking about misogyny, a lot of what we talk about on stream sometimes comes off as like by a man for a male point of view, and that there are probably ways that I could like degender some of the messaging I do sometimes. Now, obviously, we're talking about like dating norms or something that might be more specific, but in general, there's probably a way to like tone down how gendered the communication is, and you don't really lose anything of value, and then you have the ability to expand your audience to like women, which I think is good. So as part of this. The problem is that at some point, ironic misogyny is the exact same thing as misogyny, right? Like there's, oh God, what's the name of it? There's a name for, I'm calling on you as a black person here. There's a name for like when white people are like friendly racist towards black people, like you're so athletic. They did this a lot in like the Get Out movie. It's like endearing racism or whatever, like dumb stuff like that. There's like, we do like weird forms of like endearing misogyny or like ironic misogyny, but at the end of the day, like it all serves to like do the same purpose of like if you're a woman and you enter the community, you kind of feel like really othered because like there's constant jokes about like coomers, and as soon as I go offline, people are like posting like a million porn links, and it's just like weird stuff like that. It's probably makes it like not feel like a very inviting or welcoming community to women. So I want to start to cut down on that as much as possible. And then also my community's engagement with different actors that I have around me is like destroyed by misogyny because it inhibits people's ability to actually see legitimate criticism and to not just be misogynistic. So for instance, like there are people in my community like Brittany who gets an unwarranted amount of hate, an ungodly amount of hate for no real reason. Like other than, I mean, you might not like her because she kind of comes off as like a crystal girl, but like she's like almost no drama. She's like got her life relatively well thought out. She's like manages all of her stuff. She's like very clearly an adult. Her conversations are pretty interesting to me. She's like pretty empathetic. We can communicate back and forth. Like Brittany's like one of the best people that I've had the opportunity to meet on stream. And then you've got people like Lav who are not as great. who have like their own set of problems. But the problem is that if you're somebody looking outside into my community and you look at the type of feedback that Lav and Brittany get, you would think that like Lav and Brittany have said similarly the same types of things on stream, because the feedback is extreme for both of them. Arguably, Brittany got more hate, which is unreal to me. So when people like Lav make these accusations where they're like, oh, that community is sexist, and it's like, yeah, a little bit, but you also say really stupid shit. Like for Brittany, they are misogynistic. For you, you just say crazy shit all the time, and that's why they're really mad. But they're also a little misogynistic too. But it becomes impossible to like pick out like where are the actual like good criticisms versus where does this community just like kind of like rally against women. And there's too much like ironic, like she's turning me into an incel, or like this woman is an incel factory, and blah 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 blah. And I can see like the double standards for how I treat people. Like, and I've said this like a million times. Like my community's response, if I would have brought Lauren Southern to my house to have like waffles and pancakes or waffles and chicken instead of Nick Fuentes, instead of all of the criticism against Fuentes, it would have just been calling me a coomer the entire time. If instead of like Sneeko, it would have been like Sneeka, and it would have been like a girl version of Sneeko, it would be like, oh, he's just trying to fuck her, like she's turning me into an incel, blah, 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 blah. I don't like this idea that, and I talk about this phenomenon on stream all the time, and people still do it. When a man makes a mistake, the man is evaluated for his negative behavior. Boom. When a woman makes a mistake, it reflects poorly on all women, and that just drives me crazy. And it inhibits the ability for my community to evaluate messages from women, and it inhibits the ability for my community to grow with other women in it, because it's pretty clear as soon as you come in, like, oh, there's a girl on screen with a little bit of cleavage, and everybody's typing coomer. Like, this is why would I be in this community? Like, it's cringe, you know?
Well, in the spheres that you're in and I'm also in, to get a larger like woman audience because of the subject matter itself, or do you think that just by doing that it will open up those kinds of doors?
You're asking me if the subject matter itself is keeping women from joining my community?
Yeah, it's not engaged with.
I don't actually know if that's true. The weird thing is that it's hard for me to even believe this, because I don't have as much like real life political engagement, but from everything, how many people here do like real life political stuff? Okay, a few. Or no, actually quite a few. So this is something that I've heard over and over again. Apparently in real life, when it comes to volunteering in political groups, the real life people that show up are like 95% women. That like women are like, oh, maybe not in your guys' movement, okay? But that like women are like overwhelmingly involved. When I did a lot of the canvassing, people told me that, because when I did my canvassing event, it's DGGers, it's like all men. And people are like, this is insane. How did you get so many like boys and men out here to do this? Like it's almost always women that are like door knocking or going and doing political stuff. And that was interesting, man. I heard that over and over and over again. So I don't think there's this idea that like women are like disconnected from political stuff in the real world and only men are, and that's why they're, you know, over exaggerated online. I just think that the communities that exist online are very much like they feel like a boys club, and I think welcoming women more can help to kind of like flesh out the community. Yeah. Final question. Yeah.
What do you think that there are places on YouTube or on Twitch that talk about politics that are predominantly women that we just don't know about because of the social circles that like DGGers would be in?
Are there places on Twitch that have a lot of women that talk about politics? No, because almost all of them appeal to men. Even the women appeal to men. Like look at even online in general. Yeah, I think that most politics, even the ones that women do, end up kind of appealing. Like look at like Denim's on Twitch, right? She has like an OnlyFans now, right? Like her material is like a little bit coomer baity, a little bit like flirty. Like I think even Demon Mama said that her audience is like 70% men, and that's like a really progressive kind of out there wacky politics. But I imagine they probably don't. I would imagine they don't have much misogyny in their community. So, but I think a lot of the sure. But yeah, I think that I think that there are better ways to have that conversation online, like political conversations online that don't feel as exclusionary to women. And I'll figure that out. That's something I'll figure out. But I know that step one is getting rid of the ironic and unironic misogyny, because it doesn't benefit the community much, and it potentially cuts off like so many. And I've had a lot of like personal interactions with women where they'll tell me that, where they'll be like, oh yeah, like, you know, I was in your chat for a little bit, but like the not safe for work spam immediately when the stream goes offline is kind of weird, or like every single time like coomer gets posted when a girl on stream is kind of weird. And if I've talked to real life women saying that, there's got to be like 100 women for every one woman I talk to that feels the same way. So that's just kind of what I'm thinking. Like, yeah.
It kind of push journalistic standards back to placing a priority on like objectivity versus kind of like activism, where you kind of have to look at everything with a grain of salt, like, okay, well, these people clearly have this agenda, or are we kind of far gone past the Rubicon on that?
Is there a way to push journalistic standards back to objectivity instead of being so biased? Something that I'm starting to do with the end of all of my manifestos, we're kind of working on in my Discord group, but when I finish a writing piece now, I'm like aggressively emailing like journalists and websites to get them to change stuff if I feel like it's not there. So especially things posted to semi-mainstream stuff like Eurogamer or like Polygon or Kotaku. Like I have people that like, let's email them and see if we can get this changed. At the very least, we get a response on the record. It would be nice if I had a Twitter account to pressure some of these people. Maybe in the future we'll see. But yeah, I think that holding journalists to account. I think here's something that I've gotten more and more white pilled. I don't know, the opposite of black pilled on this as I've kind of like evolved through this. I think that individuals have way more power than they originally thought. There's a lot of political power out there for grabs. You just have to take it. And I think that like one incredibly powerful thing is emailing journalists and like providing corrections or asking for retractions. I think it will get more responses than people think. Like, I don't think anybody does it. I think if somebody publishes an article and it's wrong, you should email them and say like, hey, like email them and CC their editor in chief even if you want. Hey, you published this, it's wrong. Here's a link why. I would just like, it would be cool if you could either update this or explain why you did this. Like, that's something I'm going to encourage my audience to do more, to hold some journalists to account. I think that I'm very big on there's a feedback cycle between journalism and the people that consume media. And I don't like it when citizens try to accuse media constantly of being corrupt and horrible when the media is just more or less a reflection of what citizens want to see. There's no excuse for the media to look like what it does today, but it does because people love that bias, inflammatory, hyperactive focus on the things that they care about in the ways that they care about. So, I mean, as long as the people are holding the media to account a little bit more, I think the media will slowly change what they do. We can't accept like the super partisan reporting and the bending of facts and twisting of narratives to support like our political side. It's just, there's no excuse for it.
So I'm reading Politics is for Power right now, and as you know, they have like kind of different ideas of like deep canvassing or creating your own like student council that can actually do things. Have you thought about like, because I know you did actual canvassing, but I'm saying much more of like creating its own like community of like, hey, well, if you want to go canvass, whether you're Republican or Democrat, like here's like a group or a community that you can find, and focusing more on giving, I guess, making political change.
Are you guys able to hear their questions like pretty well on stream, or do I need to repeat it? Go on stream, tell me, talk to me. Oh, I'm just asking. Oh no, I'm asking if they hear that. Do they hear that guy fine? Or waiting? Oh, I'm just saying, just look at him up here. We hear. Oh, cool. Okay, they can hear him just fine. Nice. I can only do so many things at once. I'm only human. The resources out there for canvassing are non-existent, though. I noticed that when we did our canvassing projects, there's like, if you're looking for help or guidance, I don't know if people just don't take it seriously. Like if canvassing is just like a hobby project that people do to feel good about themselves or to waste money. But yeah, finding resources for it was very, very hard. You'll find like a couple YouTube videos with like 700 views, but that's unfortunate, but I think the reality is that like door knocking is just so much less sexy than like trying to get like, fire tweets. And people are more concerned with like kind of the online activism because it feels so much more important. Than doing stuff in real life. I think that the reluctance to engage with stuff like canvassing on a deeper level, I don't think has anything to do with canvassing. I think it has to do with there's kind of this weird thing that happened with the internet where people don't really care much about their local areas anymore. They're more like citizens of the United States, and they want to talk about like AOC, and they want to talk about abortion, and they want to talk about the Supreme Court. And that's why you've got like these people in California are crying because Roe v. Wade gets overturned. It's like, why are you crying? Like, you're not losing abortion in California. Something like, why? What are you so emotionally invested in this? I can understand having empathy for other people, but like, it happened a lot with the BLM stuff too. That I would talk to person after person after person, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you want Obama to do about the BLM stuff? What do you want Obama to do about policing in your city? Because like Obama can't do anything about it, right? The federal government can't do anything about policing your city. This is going to come from your mayor, from your chief of police. And these are people that you can elect, And you have these voter turnouts in these cities. It's like 25%. And you wonder why crime isn't getting fixed. Like for a 25% voter turnout, this is like you exclusively have affluent, white, people that are voting in your elections. And it's like, yeah, of course crime's not getting fixed. Like, these people don't care about an elderly, right? A 65-year-old white dude doesn't care about 3-strike laws or who's going to jail for marijuana possession because, well, why would they? They're not going to jail for marijuana possession. So I don't have, do what?
Other old guys.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. But not everybody, yeah. But I don't know how to get people to care more about local stuff. That's a challenging concept. Ironically enough, or maybe unironically, this is where some of the far right movements, I think, make good critiques on some of the liberal movements sometimes, is that from a liberal perspective, we're very nationally focused. We very much care about all the federal elections. And for a lot of conservative people, like, their concern is kind of their local community. Like, they don't really care, like, they don't want a 5% tax increase so that their money can go to, some random person that they've never seen in their life. They'd rather tithe 5% more at their local community church or something, because they see who they give the money to and they can see the communities that they help for. So yeah, I don't know how to bring that local focus back. I really have no answer there. I'm sorry, that's a really difficult one, especially because people don't really care where they live. I don't care where I live. I'm moving around like every year. A lot of young people, like, if they get a new job, they up and leave. And I mean, that's kind of the reality where we're at right now. I don't know how you incentivize people to have like a big investment in their local communities until they start having families, basically.
People with the mindset that like their vote doesn't matter because like they're 1% of 1% or whatever.
What I think about people, the mindset their vote doesn't. I mean, your vote does matter. I mean, that's how stuff gets done in the United States. I know that people don't like to think about that, but I mean, if you think your vote doesn't matter, I mean, then it won't, because you won't vote. But I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know what to say. Some people think all the elections are rigged. I guess, yeah, well, Trump does. I mean, I guess if you want to think that, you can think that, but I mean, like, your vote is, I mean, we still vote people in. That's where people come from. I mean, if you want to see change, you're gonna have to vote on it. If you don't like the idea of your one vote not counting, you said you were reading that Politics is for Power book. There is a lot of political power that's up for grabs at local levels. Like, I got so many emails, and I think even the Eaton Hirsch guy was telling me that, like, you will have these city councils who there will be like one fucking old lady that shows up at every city council meeting, and she's like the one reason why some total area isn't getting redeveloped is because she knows everybody there. She's holding up progress every time, and she's giving her story over and over and over and over again. I remember where I lived, there was this godforsaken stop sign intersection, and I hated it. And I wanted them to put a stoplight there. I wanted them to put, no, wait. I didn't want them to put a stoplight there. There was a stoplight there, and I liked it because they'd gotten rid of, like, there were stop signs there, and then they put a stoplight, and it made it so much easier to get through the intersection. Something like that, one way or the other. I don't remember. This is a while ago. But I remember there was a lady that went door knocking to get people to sign a petition to, like, bring back the stoplight because it was, like, unsafe for kids to cross the street. And she came, and I was like, no, I hate that stop sign. I have a 9-year-old son here. If he dies, it's on me, okay? Like, this intersection sucks to wait at night at a stoplight where I have to turn left and wait 5 minutes per turn. And I kind of laughed it off or whatever. And but this little old lady went up and down the block getting her signatures. 2 weeks later, the stoplights all had the black hoods over them, like they were going off to the gallows. She got them axed. She did it. And the stop signs or whatever got taken out. Stoplights got put up, and now there's like a 5-minute wait there if you want to turn left coming out of where I used to live. But yeah, there's a lot of political power up for grabs at the local level. There's a lot of really interesting, inspirational stories in that book about people that go after it. You just have to be willing to put in a little bit of effort to do it.
So I know that 2024 elections are pretty far away at the moment, but do you think that when 2024 gets a bit closer, do you think you're going to do like another canvassing event like with Georgia in 2020 with the Senate elections?
Well, I do another canvassing event. I don't know, dude. The last one crushed my soul. For Omaha, for like runoff elections or something. I don't know. I'm truly undecided. I'm just going to find out what's going on. I can probably mobilize even more people next time. We've got a formula down pretty well for like organizing it and getting it to work. Obviously, I have a lot of money personally that I can invest in the project. Maybe. I don't know. Depends on how I feel. I can probably like play the media a little bit better too in terms of getting them to show up and cover the event. I'm pretty confident at this point. I could probably bring out like 200 canvassers to any event in like a big state next to like a major airport. Maybe I'll consider it, but I don't know yet. Who knows? We'll see.
When are you bringing back the dating show with Kyla and Dan?
The dating show with Kyla and Dan. The biggest thing that's messing it up right now is I think Kyla preferred to do it on weekends, and I've been traveling like every weekend for like a different event, and I think I'm booked like all through like this month and next month. Like I think I'm going to London, I think I'm going to Montreal, I think I'm going to Austin again. There's just like so much random stuff coming up that the weekend times are really hard. Maybe if we move it to like a Wednesday or a Friday, maybe it'll be easier. Oh, but we were trying to get call-ins for the show too. That's why we did it on the weekend, because I don't know if we can have people calling in on like days they're supposed to work. We haven't stopped it. I'm just like out of town every weekend right now doing stuff. So. Another commitment to no NSW November. What month are we in right now? What is the next month, November? We might do no NSFW as soon as I get home. We might. Because I don't know what the point is. I'm not sure anymore. We all know where to go to find porn on the internet. Do we need people linking in a chat as soon as my stream goes offline? I don't know. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? For a show of hands. Do we want not safe for work links posted in chat? Wow. Okay, we got a couple. We got 3, 4 defenders here. Okay, so well, these guys are on board. Wait, hold on. I'm curious. How many people in here like my League of Legends content? Look at this. League fans show up. How? They do. The rift is strong. Yep, there's the Coomers in chat. Not good, guys. Not good. How many of you guys are in here? Okay. What, who next? Go for it.
So I notice sometimes when you debate really heavy right-wing people, kind of like Fuentes even at times too, a lot of their arguments can be based in some sort of like Christian nationalist dogmatic linking. And I also noticed that you've been reading C.S. Lewis a lot too. And so I was wondering if there was a correlation there, if like C.S. Lewis was helping you kind of understand like where they're coming from more and how to argue against it, or if like they're even wrong too. Because even when you would argue against Sneeko too, it's like he would say he wanted a godly woman, but
yeah, okay. So I think you have to separate, like, if you're talking like America First Christian nationalism, that's completely different than whatever the Sneeko Red Pill guys are talking about when they invoke. Like when those guys are talking Christianity, it's whatever excuse they can have to like hate women. It's unironically. I think that when Christian nationalist groups invoke it, I think that there's more of kind of like a center focus on like one of the guys that I debated today said this really well. I think if you are a strong Christian person, and maybe even a Christian nationalist person, you view the country fundamentally as being built from the bottom up, right? Like a strong country starts with a strong family, right? And a strong family starts with a strong mother and a strong father, and they're embodying some form of Christian values that allow them to survive and thrive as a strong Christian family. And then from those building blocks, you start to build out a society. I don't agree with the Christian worldview, but I think that there are like Christian critiques that can be made of a society that is too secularized that are probably valid to listen to, that there's probably a reason why families have existed in the ways that they have for so long. And there have been like tweaks, over time. Like we haven't always been as much a nuclear family versus kind of like more of a collection of family members that raise people. We haven't always been like Christianity. There have been other religions, but like there have been like trends and currents that have existed throughout human history. Usually when I look at like, this is kind of like my secular way of viewing like kind of the Christian nationalist movement. When I think of Christian nationalists, I usually think of people that see a secular life lived right now that seems to be lacking in structure and lacking in purpose. That you have a bunch of people that are basically like ping pong balls bouncing around from dopamine machine to dopamine machine. You've got porn, you've got internet gaming, and then like LGBT issues and socialism, and you have this kind of directionless life that when you look at the stats, you see like, okay, well, depression is increasing, loneliness is increasing, single men are decreasing, unhappiness, and then they look at all of this and say, okay, well, these people have no purpose, they have no like guiding rigid structure for life, and then they kind of like look back to days of old and they go, okay, well, what did like old functional families used to look like? It was a mom, it was a dad, it was a couple children, it was people doing chores, it was people going to church, and I think that's what, when I view Christian nationalism, I just look at like a group of people that are looking for a way to impose some kind of structure back on life that makes things make sense again, so that everything isn't like so like blown out and bizarro, which is in some ways is kind of where we're at right now in society. I think that liberals need to do a better job at giving a better framework for life, because if we've learned anything about ourselves as humans, it's humans left to their own devices in front of infinite dopamine machines will keep pulling the lever until their brains rot and fall out of their ears. That's just not something that we can handle responsibly, whether it's sugar in our diets, whether it's infinite online gaming, whether it's infinite access to, masturbating 10 times a day to porn, whether it's whatever. Like we need... The word that I've been using is friction. There needs to be more friction in life accessing the things that make us happy, because I think there's probably a lot of happiness that comes from the friction itself. I made this argument, this is very not related, but I made this argument with like the Robinhood trading stuff, that like maybe being able to buy and sell stocks with absolutely no fee is not good, because people treat it like gambling, they get addicted to it, and having a little fee there makes you stop and think like, okay, maybe I need to think about this a little bit more. Same thing with playing games, same thing with like watching porn, same thing with doing like anything. Like there should probably be a little bit more friction in life to give you like a little bit more of a struggle to get things, rather than just activating the dopamine receptors by scrolling TikTok and Reddit over and over and over again. Yeah.
Is there anyone that you look up to, like to the point where their positions might influence your positions?
Anybody I look up to whose positions might influence your position? No. I don't know why, but I'm just not that kind of person. Usually what I learn from best is I learn a lot through conflict. So usually it'll either be a person or it'll be an event in my life that challenges me in some way that I feel like I don't have an adequate answer for. And then hopefully, ideally, usually through that challenge, I will have some kind of like self-development, or I'll grow in some way to where I can develop like an answer or a response for that. So if I go through like a challenging period of my life, usually if something is challenging me, it's because I'm doing something like not well, and I'll try to change that thing. Or if I have like a series of arguments where it's like I don't have a good response for this, I'll either change my argument or I'll like flesh out mine more so that I feel like I can respond to it better. But I find that I tend to grow and learn more through conflict. But yeah.
Back to the females, wanting to bring more females onto.
Jeff, or can I get like a bottle of water real quick?
I got you.
Okay, go ahead.
Back to wanting to bring more females on stream, you realize that you're going to have to change or ameliorate your personality, much less, your chat's personality as they're putting things up on there. It's like your jokes, right?
I do. I kind of do the ironic misogyny sometimes. Yeah, I'll cut back on that. I'll just stop doing it.
For instance, if somebody could say a joke like, those great big baggy sweatpants look like you're just lugging around a great big steamy bowel movement, and
why do you do this to me?
Or maybe like another, just off the top of my head, your hair looks like somebody beheaded a very old mop and stapled it to your head while you were sleeping. Those kind of jokes might not be all that. I just wanted to make those jokes.
Okay, well, you know what? You found the excuse for it. Okay, good job. When am I going to? Well, the headshots that I have right now are like so memeable. I don't know if I'm going to change them now. They're very serious. Whenever I stop being lazy, I'll get new pictures someday, but we'll see. After I dye my hair blue, I'll get nice blue-haired headshots. 6'7" guy.
When is the DGG convention going to happen?
The DGG convention. Dan's in charge of planning it, so ask him, okay? Make sure to add Dan in Discord, asking him about the DGG convention. Sure. Yeah, well, start pressuring him, okay?
Is this not the DGG convention?
This is not the DGG convention. This was the anti-Mr. Girl convention. We had this discussion at the beginning, okay?
Ball pit in the back? Or
we don't have a ball pit, but we do have a foam pit over there if you want to do gladiators and jump off. Just be careful. Yep. In the back.
Oh, me first?
Yep, go for it.
So apparently there's a study going around on Twitter of the uptick of men under 30 not having sex. Do you think that's impactful for society or not impactful? Is it significant at all? Or?
Men under 30 not having sex. So the issue is, I don't think men not having sex isn't necessarily a big deal. The big deal is going to be, why is it happening? If it's that like people are pursuing careers and stuff, but which I'm guessing is probably not the reason, then probably not a big deal. But if it has to do with like people not being able to communicate with each other or society in general becoming more atomized, then it's probably a bad thing. Those studies are weird to me. I have to look because I feel like I just saw a study that came out, or not a study, but it's these surveys that came out like a month ago that showed that like the number of men having sex was actually dramatically increasing, like 3 times more or whatever than it was before. I don't know like how these surveys are done or if like some are more reliable than others. But yeah, I mean, I will say that society right now is definitely trending towards people being more lonely. Probably not a good thing. Yeah, and then men in general suck at like communicating and stuff, so it probably impacts us even more than it does women, would be my guess.
What did you learn from the conflict of your Twitch ban?
What did I learn from the conflict of my Twitch ban? Yeah, dang. Let's see. What did I learn from my Twitch ban? It was something I already saw kind of coming in advance. One thing that I'd kind of learned from my Twitch ban that I need, I think there's like vocab that I think I need to censor moving forward. I just have to be careful with some word. It always like changes. One thing I need to do is I become like the testing ground for every new Twitch ban when they like decide certain words are not okay. Like I wonder if I got banned for saying inbred or subhuman. I'm not sure, even though other people use those words, but maybe I got dinged for that. I probably need to aggressively, proactively cut out other words. Like I have a feeling that if I get back on Twitch, I'm going to be like the first person to get banned for saying retarded. So like it feels like something will happen to me. So I probably need to be more aggressive at like cutting certain words out of my vocabulary. But I still don't know 100% what I got banned from Twitch for. I'm not entirely sure. So it's hard to say.
With your exes from Twitch and as well as like kind of like Dylan Burns stopping doing hippy-dippy roundtables of sorts, the more interactive, engaging kind of debate panels, not to be too overly pessimistic, what do you see coming from the now rotting corpse of Twitch politics?
I don't know. A lot of people seem to try to move over to YouTube, I think. Like, Erudite does YouTube streams now. I think Kyla does YouTube streams when she's with me. Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know even who does politics on Twitch right now. I know there's like Hassan and Mike. I think Denims does. There's always like that weird small lefty community that just like circle jerks themselves, but I don't know how many of them are like active on Twitch that much. It's very dead.
It turned into lefties just kind of cannibalizing each other because they didn't have.
Big bad Destiny to attack her.
Stardust, they got tired of attacking her. You're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Is that new?
What? Is that new? Well, I think when I was there, they had more of a focus on hating me than hating each other, but I think one of the big issues is that like people in general in society are very big on like pulling up the ladder behind them. Like when somebody gets big, they don't want to talk to anybody anymore that's beneath them. People on Twitch do this like all the time. I don't know if it's as bad in the YouTube world, but it definitely happens in the Twitch world. So like it felt like there were no other content creators besides me that were willing to like make regular, like I'll show up on Prime Kai's panel if I feel like there's a debate that I really want to have, or I'll go on like these random panel shows to talk to random people just because I think the topics are interesting. But like it seems like people like Vaush never do that. Hassan definitely doesn't do that. Mike definitely doesn't do that. I don't even know if Denims does that. Yeah, it seems like once people hit a certain view count, they're basically just like, fuck you, I've got mine, like, get away from me, you're dirty, and I'm just gonna like do my clout chasing stuff, which is like obviously really detrimental to the scene. And then it doesn't help that like all the three pillars of like the politics online community are unwilling to engage with anybody because they're such fragile man children, right? That like, even if we hate each other, a debate between me and Hassan, he would get like 3x the viewers for that debate. It would be huge. If me and Vaush debated, he would get 3x the viewers for that debate. It would be huge. These guys are like so like ego brained that they're actually like they're cucking their own content because it would be good content for them. They're cucking the overall growth of the communities because obviously anytime like we're fighting, like you guys are reacting to it and you guys are getting a lot of views off of it. And they're just like overall like harmful and damaging to even their own political ideologies because they could be growing their own ideologies. Like it's so funny because Vaush will talk about we got to convert people, Bro, my audience is bigger than yours and you say I'm I'm sorry. You say I'm an idiot. Come convert my audience. Come take them from me.
20 to 50 viewer Andy, he won't even talk to me because there's the possibility of him losing a debate with someone that, yeah.
Well, because a lot of these guys, Hassan and Vaush, have this like they built this perfect like trap for themselves where they're like, I'm not gonna talk to anybody that's smaller than me because I don't want to risk platforming like a bad actor. So they've like built this perfect like world where like, oh, I can only talk to the people that also just so happen to benefit my career the most. Like, oh wow, how clever and crafty for you. Like, lame, stupid. Sean.
I'm in a lot of right-wing circles, and I noticed about 6 years ago, like let's say, no right-winger would really be a fan of yours, but 4 or 5 years ago, there are a lot of people on the right that started to listen to you a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people I talked to today at the tent and even here that said, yeah, I'm right-wing, I disagree with a lot of what he says, but I listen to him now a lot. Do you know why that's happening? Is there a societal shift, or is it a change in you? Or
yeah, so I think I've changed. I think I've changed quite a bit actually in terms of being more empathetic towards people on the right. I also think that in general, I thought about this a lot offline one day because I've gotten asked this question a lot, and it is pretty hard to think about. People always ask me like, why are you so much nicer to right-wing people than left-wing people? And I don't think that's my default position. I don't think I try to be, but I spend a lot of time thinking about this, like why it seems like I can communicate with right-wing people that disagree with me so much more easily than left-wing people that disagree with me. And I think the reason why that is because if you're like a very left person in society, like everybody wants to speak at you and to you. Like Hollywood wants to make you feel heard. Schools want to make you feel represented. Like all of society wants to make you understand that you're special, you're awesome, we hear you, we're here to fight for against white supremacy, and we want to do land acknowledgements, and we want to have like LGBTQIQ, whatever. Like everybody wants your ear, and they want to talk to you, make you feel loved and welcome or whatever. And I think a lot of conservative communities are like feel like nobody's listening to them. And I think that a lot of the conservative communities that are growing, their figureheads are people that are literally collecting these people that feel like they're just completely unheard. Like when you look at people like Jordan Peterson was like the prototypical, I think, example of this. And then you look at like a lot of the red pill guys now. I think that a lot of those audiences are just like super hungry for anybody to feel like anybody is listening to their problems. So I think that when I go into a room, if you're a progressive, you don't care what I have to say, because I'm going to come at you with some criticism, because I'm not going to wholly, endorse any particular ideology like farther left or farther right than me. So, but why would you listen to me when there are so many people in society saying like, I love you and I accept you and all your faults and everything, you're perfect and blah, blah, blah. You're going to listen to me on the left. I would have to like simp so hard for you to even get you to care about what I'm saying. But if you're on the right and I'm able to accurately explain like, okay, well, I don't agree with you, but I understand like these are your complaints. I understand that you're looking for these types of solutions. Like I get your problems. Like they're real. They exist. Obviously, like feelings aren't random. We say that on the left all the time, nobody feels things by accident. I think if you're on the right, you're like, oh, well, it's cool that like somebody, especially somebody on the left, at least seems like, even if I don't agree with them, at least it seems like they understand my problems. Because I think most people on the left are only speaking to people on the left, and they don't really seem to care to try to like have any sort of empathetic bridge built at all, because everybody on the right is just like a racist, Nazi, neo-fascist. You.
Midterms in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Get some content on that soon.
Are we going to get content on midterms in 3 weeks? That's going to depend on how quickly I finish my factorial run, but we'll see. I'm trying to, what I need to do is cut down factorial to like 3 hours a day, probably 6 hours a day, and then I need to spend like 3 or 4 hours on like actual political content. I'll do it as we get closer to the midterms, We're still a good 20 days out, all right?
Okay, another one. All right. So whenever you argued with the black conservative that was part of the TPUSA, do you remember that? It was about abortion.
Oh, is it Bryson Gray?
Yeah. But so the idea was,
the guy that said clouds have feelings or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you shared an idea of like, okay, well, if I woke up in the hospital and I was attached to someone.
Are you trying to sneak another vegan argument into here?
No, well, it's important because I kind of wanted to see the logical conclusion. So, but I guess my question would be, why doesn't the my body, my choice argument work? Because you kind of like, whenever I heard you.
My body, my choice doesn't work for the woman, because if you're making the concession that the fetus is alive, you're essentially arguing that a woman can be inconvenienced enough to murder someone. That's why I don't like that, like, people will make the argument that, like, okay, it's a fetus and it's a human life and it's living and it's worth moral consideration, but, like, the woman doesn't want to be pregnant and it's, like, aggressing on her. It's like, okay, yeah, but it didn't choose to aggress on you. You can't fucking murder something because it's, like, inconveniencing you, even if that inconvenience is, like, substantial. That's why I don't like people that make the bodily autonomy argument for abortion. I think that if you concede that, like, the fetus is a living life from day one, I think you kind of have to let it grow at that point, unless there's, like, a threat to the mother's life. Otherwise, yeah.
And then would you say that, like, if someone woke up in the hospital and then they were like, okay, well, no matter what, if this person has to be detached from me, they're going to die, you would be like, okay, well, I guess you kind of have to live with that?
If you woke up from the hospital and somebody was attached to you and you didn't want them attached and you decided to remove them, I think you can argue that you're allowed to do that because you didn't make any kind of action or consent that there was a possibility of that happening. I think that with sexual intercourse, at least non-rapey sexual intercourse or non-rape sexual intercourse, that you kind of consent to some extent that there's like a percentage chance that you're going to get pregnant. So in a way, you kind of have to like consent to the outcomes of that. Or at the very least, you have to recognize that if you're going to say that there's a life on day one, you're risking like murdering somebody because you wanted to fuck, which I think is... I don't think you can overcome that. It's just such a huge burden. Like, I think if you're going to make pro-choice arguments, if you can't start by conceding that like on day one it's a human life worthy of moral consideration. You just can't do that. I don't think so, because again, you're making arguments to, like, murder somebody, which is like really extreme in my opinion.
Doesn't like the term murder already, because like murder doesn't like include all forms of killing, like by definition. It's like a specific subset of like things that are considered forms of killing.
Yeah, murder is by definition like an unjustified killing, basically. Yeah.
So like, couldn't we like define like abortion as a form of killing? Like that doesn't constitute murder.
It's so hard. Like how? Like if you like, so here's how this argument would go. Okay, so the argument would say, okay, sure, there's a fetus, sure it's living, and sure it's in your body, but I think you should kill it. And I go, how can you kill a baby that's like just an innocent baby? And you go, it's not an innocent baby. It's actually a form of aggression against me. It's like making my body materially worse. It's harming me by being in my body, stealing resources, making me worse off. But then my point against that would be, well, it is so young and so innocent that it doesn't have agency yet to make the choice to harm you. It's essentially, well, by definition, literally a child. That in real life, if an adult human were to come up to me and try to take something from me, that might escalate into a scenario where like we get into a fight over, you know, our lives. If in real life, like a 2-year-old walks up to me or like a 6-month-old crawls over to me to take something, they're 6 months old. They don't have the agency yet to make a choice that would make killing them a reasonable response in regards to what they're doing, I think. think. And I feel like for the fetus, I feel like it would be reasonable. Like, yeah, you can argue that it's a life, but it's aggressing against you, but it didn't choose to aggress against you. And killing that person for that perceived aggression that generally won't kill you. There's a very, very low chance. And if it does threaten your life, you can abort, obviously. It's a really long shot argument that, yeah.
Like, if we're using the term murder, which is like legally defined, are we kind of like...
Well, sure, I guess I wouldn't use murder. I'd say killing unjustly, because when you use murder, you're kind of begging the question. But that's what most people would view it as, I think, right? Yeah.
Sometimes you use homicide, justifying homicide, not justifying all those.
Sure.
Rather than murder.
Yeah, sure, maybe, yeah. Somebody had their hand up over here. Back.
You mentioned earlier that getting the left and the right to meet in the middle is really difficult. Would you ever consider doing a change my mind where you moderated a debate between two students? Or would that be too much of a shit show?
I changed my mind where I moderate a debate between two students. There's a lot of risk there. In a one-on-one conversation, I have control over like 90% of the conversation. In a moderated conversation, I have control over like 10% of the conversation. Like if I get somebody that's really like obstinate or like very like non-cooperative, like I can cut the convo or I can try to steer it in a positive way. If two people like that show up, trying to moderate a conversation between two strangers would be very, 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 very difficult, especially if it's two people that don't know me very well. Because when I moderate conversations, a lot of what moderates it is my reputation kind of preceding me, right? Like, oh, it's Destiny. He's here to like, be like a reasonable moderator. If you're like random students and you've got some weird dude showing up with dumpy sweatpants and head of hair that looks like it fell off an executed guy, 20 years ago or whatever. Yeah, you might not be as keen to listen. Like they might just start like fighting each other. Like, I don't know. So yeah, I don't know if I can moderate debates between strangers unless like people specifically signed up for it. That would be like a different type of event, I think.
You argued how to be like diversity of opinion. Does that affect all your opinion of like college campuses and diversity of thought?
The people that interacted with me, does that affect my opinion on the diversity of thought on college campuses? Not really. Usually when I'm looking for like, do I feel like there's an issue with diversity of thought on college campuses? I'm not necessarily looking at individual student opinions. I'm looking at how school administration is acting, and I'm looking at like kind of large scale events on college campuses to see what's going on. Like if it was the case that college campuses were all evenly split 50-50 in terms of like political opinion between like conservatives and liberals, but I still see that like conservative speakers get boycotted off of campuses, like often enough for it to be alarming. I still see that like a lot of school faculty can get like bullied out of schools because they're not like left-leaning enough. I wouldn't really care about the student body opinion at that point. My concern would still be like about like these kind of events that are happening around the schools. Where are we at for time? Okay.
Wes.
Yeah, you again.
Okay, so I really like your kind of idea of morality and the axioms that you have. But I guess, as a DGGer, I want to parrot your ideas. I have trouble whenever it kind of goes from the big idea of morality to maybe like more minutia of actions. And I guess my question is, how do you kind of like, parse that?
From big, can you give me an example? Like on an issue.
Okay, let me think. I guess okay, so society like should benefit everybody, blah blah blah. Like,
or just give me like one like particular policy, and I can kind of talk you through like how I would kind of.
I don't know if it's so much policy or if it's like particular decisions that I would make day to day.
Yeah, particular decision. Give me a particular decision.
So like I guess like the idea of like, okay, well I want to aggress on you, right? So what is it? Autonomy is protected and like your possessions are protected. Okay, well now if I need to steal bread to survive, well now I'm taking from somebody because I need to survive. And I kind of come to this moral quandary of like, okay, well I'm taking bread, but like have I now broken all of my moral axioms or like...
Yeah, so I try to think of, when I'm thinking of an action, I usually try to think of like if I universalize like the action and the justification for action all throughout society, like how would it look? Like if people have to steal food to survive, that's probably preferable to people like starving to death. Like I think in that case it's probably okay. If you literally have to take food to survive, it's probably not the worst thing in the world. And like if I caught somebody like breaking in and stealing food from me and they were like starving to death, I'd be like, okay, like, get out, but take some food. Yeah, I think in that sense it's probably okay. You just have to look, I think, at like the intentions of the actions and then see like, and then I guess like think to yourself, like if everybody was acting in this manner, would it like completely destroy society or would we be better off for it or whatever? Yeah, so.
How do you plan on changing the discourse when right now all the incentives seem to line up towards deplatforming?
How do I plan on changing the discourse when all the incentives seem to line up with deplatforming? I think that, so what I see is, I think I see something that nobody else sees, okay? right now, which is kind of what I'm aiming for, is I think that you can actually have really challenging conversations with people that dramatically disagree with you, and you can still have like productive discourse. And I feel like nobody on the left acknowledges that to be true, that right now the idea is, it was all built off this idea of the paradox of tolerance, that if we're going to have a truly tolerant society, we have to be intolerant of the intolerant, but that intolerant category basically became anybody that disagrees with me about anything. And then so progressives have become like the new like ultra intolerant group of people, because now they're so worried about everybody being like a secret fascist that they can't have any conversations. So I've generally had really positive reception in every single community that I've like tried to have this style of conversation in, and I think that if more people did it, I think we'd be better off for it. And I think it's possible. I think it just has to be demonstrated to more people. Like people need to see that it's possible. Yeah, because there just aren't left-leaning people that are willing to do it.
Yeah, I heard from you.
Could you see anything implemented in public education that would tackle your top complaints with modern political discourse?
Anything implemented in public education that would help my top complaints for modern discourse. Everybody should be required to take a basic psych class, and everybody should be required to take a basic philosophy class. Psychology is really, really, really important. The most important thing that I learned in my psych class in high school was how untrustworthy your own mind is when it comes to like recording and remembering events. You are such a biased observer. It is unbelievable to learn about to look at all the little what's the name of the line test? It's something Shack test. What is it? Rorschach? I thought that was the guy from the. No, I'm not talking about the. There's a line. Yes, what's it called?
I don't know the name, but it's yeah.
What?
Milgram?
Not the Milgram. I have a room full of DGers. Nobody knows about the line test. There's like an experiment where like you draw 3 lines on a board and you bring in a group full of people and you ask them, is this line like smaller, larger?
It's called social identity theory. Is like the thing.
Social identity theories, yeah. Sure, but like basically like you can get a person to answer like objectively stupid answers just based on like the people in the room pressuring him to give a certain answer, right? You've got the Milgram experiments to see how far you can push somebody to deliver an electric shock to somebody. I won't cite the Stanford experiment since a lot of people are very controversial, I guess, in how people interpret the results of that. But like, it seems like there's a lot of psychology that shows that our behavior is a lot more manipulatable than we would like to believe, and that our memories for recording events are a lot more biased than we would like to believe. And the cool thing is that when you learn that, it gives you the ability to kind of take a step back from your own perspective and kind of think like, okay, well, I probably need better tools to collect data about myself or analyze like my past and the framework through which I view my own life, because if I only rely on like my own kind of subjective emotional feelings, I'm gonna get a really distorted view of reality. So that's important, the basic psych class. And I think like a basic philosophy class where you just kind of like learn how to form like, what is a deductive argument? Like, what is a syllogism? How can we see like if A, if B, then, you know, conclusion? Like, how can we see these things? Those 2 things I think would be ultra super beneficial. I wish everybody had to take like just a basic philosophy and a basic psych course. I think it would help everything in society.
What values do you think are important in a significant other?
What values are important in a significant other? I mean, that's going to be super reflective in what you think is important for yourself, right? Like for some people, their religion is really important, so it's probably important you line up on that. For me, it's usually, can you deal with an inordinate amount of abuse online and the absolutely batshit insane life that I live? William and I were just fighting about this today. Yeah, for me, my life is, it not only is it insane, it becomes more insane essentially every single 6 to 12 months, sometimes because of decisions that I make and other times because of other decisions that I make. So usually you have to be somebody that can like tolerate a whole bunch of crazy, insane shit. Yeah, that's probably the most important thing. On a more personal level, I like people that can like handle a lot of joking, because I'm a very, like, I can be very, I have like, I'm trying to find a nicer way to say negging, but like I like a lot of like insult, like back and forth, like banter type humor. Somebody that can deal with that a lot, somebody with high self-esteem and high confidence, because I'm not very good at like reassuring somebody a lot. That's very difficult for me. People with very strong personalities. A lot of women can kind of have like this kind of like demure, like subservient personality. I super don't like it. I have a very aggressive personality, and if you have a weak personality, I'm just going to steamroll you all the time. That's very boring to me. I need somebody with a lot of independence. I work a lot. I can work for months on end without even thinking about it, and you need to be somebody that can like go off and do it. But that's, yeah, I feel like I'm writing an OkCupid profile, but yeah. I guess that's for me personally, yeah. Sansel.
The Cake recently put out a thing on the Reddit about the website. whatever it is y'all are calling it.
Yeah.
Are you, the service, whatever you want to call it. Are you intending on that being in direct competition with Whiteleaf? And also, was it the Rose Risk ousting that spurred that on?
Nothing I ever do would ever be in direct competition with Whiteleaf because those people are on a level that is so beneath anything I would ever be involved in. It's insulting that you'd even imply that, okay? Number one. Number two, the thing that actually spurred it on was I've been paying a ton of money to these programmers in chat, like Jader, okay? Is our shit turned on yet? What was turned off? The slash what? Yeah, the Jader guy. We have features in chat that aren't working, even though I'm paying this guy constantly around the clock to work on our shit. I think it was slash mentions that was broken. But no, Jader's been doing a ton of work on parts of the site that are unseen, like in terms of like cleaning up the code base, basically making it so that like we have like a full stack that we can now deploy to other people. And it was Mr. Girl that kind of got the ball rolling all of that because he needed his own platform. So we started with Mr. Girl. We've got a couple of other creators that we're talking to. And yeah, I think the goal is, we've always kind of talked about that DGG in a box idea, but I think the problem was that like the old code base was, I don't want to say it was a clusterfuck, but it was hard to deploy that to other people. Like lots of messy code, lots of hard-coded stuff, lots of bad scaling, like just kind of messy. And it's been cleaned up enough that we can start to make that project more of a reality. But Mr. Girl definitely started it. The White Nervosa stuff definitely motivated us a bit more because now there's like a lot of people reaching out to Cake. But we just have to find a way to make it profitable for us to run. Yeah.
Something that would be linked through DGG and you can see a list of streamers that are live on it, or is this just...
That's a good question. So we spoke about this. I don't want to commit to anything, and now I'm leaking secret meeting notes from me, Cake, and Jader. But there's like a concept out there of like a federalized like system to where like you don't log into DGG anymore. You log into like the DGG server, and it's like an OAuth that basically you can use for any of these sites. So like let's say that you wanted to go to my site, you wouldn't actually log in on my site directly. You would OAuth in from like, it might just be called like DGG login or something. We probably have a different name for it. But then if you wanted to go to Mr. Girl's site, you could use like the same login. You wouldn't have to create a new identity for each one. And that would let us carry emotes over from site to site, potentially. This is all like potentially right now. I'm not sure. But it feels like if we have like 10 or 15 people running on this platform, it'd be nice to reciprocate emotes. And it'd be nice to have like a standardized OAuth and services running between everybody. But I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Maybe we'll get lazy and fuck off and not do anything. If it doesn't work out, blame Cake. The federated thing was my idea, by the way. Okay. You.
Naruto or Sasuke?
I don't know. I actually have never watched a single episode of Naruto my entire life.
The next debate, like...
Make it the next debate? You want to debate John Zerko on it?
I'll be the first.
Naruto guy.
What do you think?
Sasuke.
Even I've never watched Naruto, and even I know that any remotely edgy person is choosing Sasuke, like every single time, right? It's like not even a...
Whole thing, but without Naruto.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I would never, without ever having watched an episode of Naruto my entire life, Sasuke seems like the Vegeta of the Naruto world. Is that? Okay, yeah. No? Ooh.
We can have that debate.
Okay, so I'm gonna give this. Okay, so I've never seen Naruto. I'm gonna give this description of Sasuke, and you can tell me if I'm completely off or if it sounds kind of right. Sasuke feels like a character that might always be living in Naruto's shadow and has to try like way harder to like catch up or get powerful. And no, not at all. Oh, well then, okay, well what's?
But so was Vegeta at the beginning, right?
Was Vegeta ever stronger than Kakarot?
Before he went Super Saiyan, the only reason that Goku...
Wait, doesn't Goku show up and kick Vegeta's ass like over and over again?
Okay, can I explain the Sasuke Naruto situation a little bit better?
Yeah, go.
It starts off, Naruto is jealous of Sasuke because Sasuke is like super well trained and blah, blah, blah. And then as the first like show part goes, Naruto passes up Sasuke, which causes Sasuke to get really upset. He thinks he's worse than Naruto, and so he leaves to go gain more power. And so it's always kind of this play between the two where they gain more power, but they're like, it's like, yeah. It's like,
does Naruto ever catch up to, or does Sasuke ever catch up to Naruto?
Yeah, it goes back and forth as well.
Oh, okay. Okay, so not quite Vegeta then, gotcha. Because I don't think Vegeta ever really gets stronger than Goku once Goku passes him, right?
He does when he first comes Super Saiyan.
Majin
Wait,
Vegeta
what?
was stronger than Super Saiyan.
When Vegeta first goes Super Saiyan, you think he's stronger than...
I don't know, because Goku has like a heart condition.
Then, yeah,
I
that's-
don't know if that counts. But
No, it doesn't count.
the clown's ass.
Oh, okay. Stop. Okay.
He also beat him
When he was Majin.
When he was Majin, didn't he have special Majin powers? Does that count?
I don't know how much Majin
What is your honest opinion of your largest financial supporters, the Giga Chad L spammers?
The Giga Chat L spammers. I'm not gonna lie, like there are times where I just like I go to the living room to get like a drink, and then I hear like the L spam like going on in the other room. Honest to God, I usually just sit on the couch and I'll start like browsing Reddit, and I just listen to like the L going in the room, because I'm like I'm gonna make like $100. Like I'm just gonna sit out here and chill, and then I'll wait till, and then sometimes I'll come back in and I'll be like, okay, I'm like muting these because now even I'm getting annoyed because I have to listen to it in the other room. Yeah, basically, yeah. And I like watch my viewers. It's like I'm basically, people are paying me like, here's $10 for you to lose like another 500 viewers. I'm like, yeah, fuck it, okay, sure. Yeah, you know, LLL is it's a way of life. It's contemplative, yes.
The Obama theme is going to last.
How long will the Obama meme last? Who knows? You guys are really good at keeping memes around forever. I still see that Destiny is a woman's name in like every single YouTube comment section I've like ever shown up in. So. What are you gonna do? You're not supposed to laugh in real life.
Yeah.
You think you type in lol? You think you're actually laughing? On the Portal debate, the answer is always B. It always flies out. Yeah. Okay.
So you got a lot of interesting projects going on, and I'm wondering, like, what's your thought process behind like responsibly scaling? Maybe not so much for you because you're a millionaire, but for other people who have projects that they don't want to have like devastating consequences if it fails.
How much you want to go into a project is that's always going to be an incredibly personal question to the person going in on the project. But I can't write a hard rule for that, right? I quit my job as a carpet cleaner when I did the math on streaming, and I realized that like if I make the same money streaming and I stream like 100 and whatever hours a week I was doing fucking carpet cleaning, that I would make the same amount of money streaming as I would carpet cleaning. So why wouldn't I stream? That's when I quit my job cleaning carpets. That was my decision for me. But if you're investing a lot of time into something that's not making any money, and you've got like a family that relies on you, then the calculus for you is going to be a lot different than like a 19-year-old. That like if you're a 19-year-old and you're in a situation where you are you can take a big risk but do something like really cool, I'd say fuck it, you're 19, go for it. Especially if you come from like a family that can like support you, right? Like if you're like from a middle class family and you fuck up and you live with them for a while afterwards, then yeah, go for it, you know. But your personal risk tolerance is personal. It's going to depend a lot on your life situation, what you're going for.
How are you even thinking about like even this project, right? Like that we're all here right now, and then some of the other things you've talked about. Like, what is your thought process behind like, do I want to allocate my time, energy, and finances here? Like, how do you think about that just generally? Like, what are you doing now?
How do I think about it generally? So for what I have to think about, so what I'm thinking about right now is like, what is my goal for my political content? Right now, over the past like few months, I think I've had a lot of personal development in terms of how I see the world and how I see other people. And I think that has given me a little bit of a unique insight into dealing with people with vastly different political opinions. I kind of pilot tested that with Sneeko and the Fresh and Fit crew, and the reception was way better than I thought it would be. I tested it a bit with the America First crew, and I thought it went way better than I thought it did, based on the emails I've gotten from them and from the top secret forum that I check out sometimes. But if it is the case that I'm able to do that, then I'm kind of looking for what are other projects in real life that I can dip my toes into to see if I can have a similar kind of effect. And when it comes to talking to people in the real world, like Steven Crowder has changed my mind formula, I think works really well. Going to college campuses, talking to people with the goal of like having challenging, like I think Crowder's idea, I don't like Crowder, but I think his idea and the way he executes it is pretty admirable. Like I respect him for that. And I just completely copied it. Yeah.
Something was floated earlier, two separate points that I think you could join together. One was people don't know how to engage in difficult conversations, and the change my mind format. What if instead of change my mind, or you have two people debating and you moderate them, what if you give a live, on a platform like you had today, a live test to show people how to do that? Say you have a imagined or scripted conversation happening and somebody is debating in that, and you teach, they try to do it themselves, then you critique them or try to steer them in the right direction on how to have that conversation and make it productive. I
could, but the problem is that lends itself to so much variance that may or may not work. that would be an interesting YouTube series, like if it's scripted, but doing that live would be incredibly challenging because you might just run into somebody that's incredibly difficult to deal with, like very stubborn, or people with like not the greatest of people skills, and no matter how much you critique them, they can't anytime it's like me critiquing another person's kind of conversation with somebody, there's just so much variability that opens up there that I don't know. Maybe in the future I'd try it, but yeah.
The events between University of Texas and TAMU, which do you think was like the most productive conversation, the most interesting conversation you've had in the past 2 years?
These conversations were a lot better because I let them run a lot deeper. One of my best conversations was probably with the socialist girl on day 1, because that conversation went pretty deep, and because she was like willing to kind of like give me shit back. Like we went back and forth a lot, which I thought was kind of fun. The second Groiper conversation I think I had today, with the Catholic, like all that shit or whatever, I thought that conversation was really good. That was a fun one to go back and forth on. Yeah, any conversation where I get to run like really deep into a topic, I think is more interesting, and you really get to flesh out some like fundamental ideas. Yeah, but I think, like I said, next time I'll have better topics, so I can get like more aggressive and pointed on certain things than I did this time, for sure. Yeah, the pit bull question. What a weird topic. People are really obsessed with pit bulls, man. What was the what? Pit bulls. Whether or not pit bulls are like a banned breed in the United States, I don't know. People feel really strong about pit bulls. Any other questions, comments, concerns, feedback? What do you got? Nothing vegan.
I've been thinking about this. It's kind of a hard vegan question, so I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it. But is Destiny a girl's name?
It's a noun.
Aren't names nouns? Like.
Is it what?
Isn't a name a noun?
The proper noun. What?
I can keep on asking questions if you're trying to keep the event going. Someone asked me about your idea for the DGG website, like news station. If you're still.
Oh yeah, for the media company. It's something I want to pursue. I'm so busy doing like a million things right now, and I really need to finish my factory. I'm not going to not finish space exploration. A lot of people have emailed me and told me that I'm never going to finish it because it's too hard, and it's triggering me. So once that SE gets finished, once I'm done with that mod, man, the content's going to be flowing, okay?
Speaking of your factory, what's after Factorial? So like
after Factorio is I need to stay away from the autism games for a little bit because I sink way too much time into them. Like I'm literally playing these like in bed, like when we're like I need to get away from these games. It's probably going to be a break from. It's probably going to be multiplayer games actually because I need to play Valorant with Lily more because that's probably fun. Yeah. I've got people that I can play Apex Legends with now. That would be fun to do. And we need to do Warzone with Dan, right? Dan! Where is he? Was he in there? Very briefly, yeah. Oh, very briefly. Maybe. He's on a different server, I don't know, but... More gym content. Oh yeah, true. Back to the gym when we get home, yes.
Your top 5 TV shows.
Top 5 TV shows? Bro, I've only watched like 5 TV shows. Number 1, because I'm going to be that guy who puts The Wire at number 1 because I've watched The Wire. Number 2 would be seasons 1 through 4 of Game of Thrones, for sure. Jesus, what other TV shows have I even watched? I guess Breaking Bad goes up there. Oh, House. Hold on. Seasons 1 through 3 of House is better than Breaking Bad. That goes at number 3. That goes at number 3. Breaking Bad goes at number 4. Basic cable it's House. Who cares? Well, hold on. Wasn't Breaking Bad a network show? It's AMC.
However, it was so good that it could have been on basic cable and still get top 3.
It could have been on basic cable and still got top 3. True. Okay. I don't know number 5. I don't know if I've watched 5 TV shows.
All right, so I've watched The Wire, and you talked about the institutionalism of like, okay, well the kids go to school, and some of them aren't even showing up because they're already running coroners and such. And I guess whenever you like speak of it, I'm like, okay, right, yeah, that's kind of like a bad thing. And then I'm like, okay, well, kind of like, I don't know what the solution would be because it's not just a cultural push, it has to be some, like, I guess it's just a multi-pronged issue. And I don't, what do you think would be?
You answered your own question. It's very multi-pronged. Yeah. You have to push on these issues from like 5 different directions at once. It can't just be one thing. Yeah. Upcoming debates. Does anybody know anybody called Just Pearly Things? I think I'm going to London to do a show with that person soon. Has Abba talked at all about anything? No. Okay, well, there might be something with him in Montreal soon. I think DebateCon is coming up soon in like a week or two. I'll be back in Austin. There's that Myth Informed thing. I don't know when that. I've got a lot of stuff on my calendar over the next 2 months. I don't know. I'll try to. It should be on my calendar hopefully if it's coming up. But yeah, there's a lot of random stuff coming up. Oh, Matt. Wait, do you know who Matt Dillahunty is?
This guy, right?
Yeah, I think I'm debating him at DebateCon. He wants to argue in favor of abortion with the fetus counting as a human life, which seems insane to me. But yeah. Okay.
A lot of the time when I get into arguments with people, they around trans issues, they bring up gender ideology being taught in schools, and I don't know how to get across to them that this isn't really happening. I'll ask for examples, and they'll give me like a one-off, and then the teacher got fired for it, so there were consequences for the actions and something like that.
Okay.
How do I?
Okay, here, you can't. This took me a long time of thinking, and I figured this one out, okay? I can actually answer this question, all right? Sometimes people will point to things, and they're not happening that much, but they still have these really strong emotional responses to them. And you're trying to figure out why, like, where are all of these things happening at that you're so, like, driven up the wall over it? And what I think is actually happening is people don't actually get mad at these specific events. They get mad at people defending them. So, like, here's an example of this. If I go on Twitter, if I'm not banned, if I were to go on Twitter and I were to tweet out, my 1-year-old child came out as trans today and we had gender surgery for them and it was amazing and now they're so happy, okay? Like, one, this would be an exceptionally rare event, and two, it might not even be real. But the reason why I think so many people on the right would get mad about it is that as soon as some people on the right get upset, a lot of people on the left would probably jump up to defend it. And when you see all of those people defending it, I think that's where the extreme response comes from the other side. I have no way to test this. I don't know if it's true, but it's a strong feeling I have. Like, if somebody on the left does something ridiculous and stupid, and people on the right say that's ridiculous and stupid, if other people on the left were like, yeah, that is kind of ridiculous and stupid, and just moved on, I think a lot of the issues that blow up and become big deals wouldn't be anywhere near as big a deal as they are. But I think the problem we make on the left is sometimes we go, this is such a small problem, why are you even like so hyper-fixated on it? And I don't think they get hyper-fixated on the problem, they get hyper-fixated on what they perceive as the huge defense for that small problem, which means they think it's probably going to become a bigger problem in the future in their heads. I think that's my guess on that, for how that works. Because I noticed that a lot, that like I'll find myself getting like pretty triggers like, this is so dumb, and then I'll think like, well, there's not that much, like it's not like it's happening that much, why do I care so much? But I'll see like the tweets like defending it will have like 100,000 likes. I'm like, holy shit, I think this is why I'm getting upset. It's not because it's not happening that much, it's because when it does happen, it seems like there are so many people defending it instead of just saying like, oh well, this is dumb, we should move on from it. I think that's what's happening. Like, progressives need to do better at like just saying like, okay, there is some dumb shit, right? Like a white person should probably be able to wear dreadlocks, and it's not a huge fucking deal. Like, just who the fuck cares, right? But when like people start to stand up and screech about it, you know, even if it's only one person doing it, 1 million people defending it is going to make it seem so much worse to the people on the other side.
I guess like the only thing is I don't know how to push back against that kind of emotional response, or to.
You have to get progressives to stop defending stupid shit on Twitter they see. That has to happen. You have to be able to like, when a conservative points out some dumb shit your side is doing, you have to be like, yeah, that is dumb shit. I think you just drop it and you move on, and that's it. Don't, like, people feel the need to get roped into defending like every fucking thing that like somebody shares a political belief with, and it's like, no, just like say that's dumb and move on. You know, I think people need to be able to do that.
But isn't it kind of hard to enforce when the left gets baited into things? Then like anyone can basically reply to it.
I mean, it's hard to enforce, but I mean, we have to start doing it. I mean, amongst ourselves. I mean, that's all we can do, right? Is try to like encourage the people around us to be less stupid. That's really all. At the end of the day, that's really all anybody can do, right? Last question, last spam. What do you got?
I guess like this kind of builds off that idea like we have these people and we need them to do better, but whenever you look at like the big political figureheads, at least on like YouTube or Twitch, it's like a very much of like, I guess they fall into the trap of, even if they try to be as like objective as possible, like you'll see Sam Cedar or David Pacman still like falling into the Kyle Rittenhouse trap. And it just, I guess it kind of feels like a lot of like people's opinions come from these bigger creators, and without like a push for these bigger creators to kind of become more objective, we're never going to really get anywhere.
whenever there is a disaster of some kind, I think it was Mr. Rogers that said, anytime you see horrible disasters, always look for the helpers. That anytime there's something horrible going on, you can always find that there's a lot of people that are like stepping up to try to do better, to try to help people, to try to do something good. When I engage with other communities, sometimes it seems like a lost cause. And it took a lot of emails and it took a lot of people talking to me to point this out. And now I'm doing a lot better at looking for it. Sometimes it seems like being good faith or doing your best is a totally wasted effort, because even after you do it, like if you go to Vaush's community today, you know, there's still a ton of people that say horrible, crazy things about me. There's still a ton of people that make up lies about me on the internet, et cetera, et cetera. Like it happens. But if you look hard enough, and if you do your best, and I think if you live your principles the way that you believe you should, and you're as consistent, as ruthlessly consistent as possible, and you advocate for them as much as you can, there are people that notice, but it's going to be a slow process. Like, you're not going to have one golden, like, come to Jesus moment where you convert half the internet to your side completely. It has to be like this slow, gradual process over time. But I do think there are people that notice. It's just like, it's got to be a relentless process of figuring your virtues out, building on them, and then exemplifying them in the world, and then kind of like keeping your eyes up for other people that are hopefully noticing, because there are people that do notice. It's just really hard to like pick them out from all the noise sometimes. Okay, well, hey, thank you guys for coming. Before we finish, one more thing I will say. The only reason we were able to come down here is because of Bridge, Texas, USA, or Texas Bridge, USA. Okay, Bridge, Texas, and Bridge, USA. They were the organization that got us out to UT at Austin, or just UT, I guess is what you guys call it. So super big shout out to that guy. I know he's not here right now, but he was on the first stream. Super happy that that guy was able to get us out to that campus. And then the Aggie Dems that were able to bring us out here to Texas A&M. Super cool for you guys. I really appreciate that. Marshall for providing the humble abode for us. Sean for doing whatever Sean does out here. Thank you very much. Oh, Sean, hold on. Well, I will say, because I technically never brought any attention to him, Sean was the guy that had me debating Elijah Schaefer, twice at both schools. That was Sean that was setting that up. So that is cool. And then Jeff for really making everything happen, because nothing would have happened. Like almost all of the planning, all of the Reddit posting, all of the bothering me to promote stuff on Reddit, making sure that I was in place at the time, making sure all of the volunteers were working, like everything. Yeah, Jeff. Yep, 100%. And I didn't do a good job at shouting this out last time, but for do I have volunteers here stand up? Yeah, these guys also helping with like setup, tear down, moving equipment around. Yeah, given that this was the first time that I ran an event like this, I thought that this was going to be so messy. I thought we were going to have like broken cameras, we were going to have stream drops, we were going to have like everything's going to be messed up. Everything ran like a Swiss Army knife. You guys did an amazing job. All the volunteers, Jeff, everybody involved in this. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you. You guys made this event really awesome.